Hello and welcome to my journey with blood cancer from diagnosis and treatment to transplant and recovery. Hello, I'm Michelle Williams. I'm a blood cancer survivor, a stem cell transplant recipient. I'm also a proud ambassador for Blood Cancer UK, as well as author of Poetry for Purpose. And 2 years ago, I was a healthy, active woman planning my future. Then overnight, everything changed. Life before blood cancer felt happy and fulfilling. I was a proud mum to two grown up sons, a dog lover and outdoor fitness enthusiast, and I'd been a business owner for the previous 15 years. But I had no idea that blood cancer was about to change everything. And this is me on the day of diagnosis, 28th of April 2024, the day after my 56th birthday. And my symptoms appeared almost overnight. And it started with extreme shortness of breath. I could barely walk a few yards without my heart racing, and even a slight incline would stop me in my tracks. Simply climbing the stairs at home felt impossible, and small everyday tasks like showering and dressing felt like running a marathon. And my symptoms worsened over a couple of weeks. So I called the doctors, but unfortunately, there were no appointments for 2 weeks. But I was told if my symptoms worsened over the weekend, that I should call 111. The next day, I knew that something was seriously wrong because on a cinema trip for my birthday, I couldn't make it up the steps. So I called 111. I called 111 and saw an out of hours GP who suspected that I had angina, and he suggested that I go to A&E just as a precaution for some routine blood tests, just to rule out that there was nothing more sinister going on. But unfortunately, all of my blood counts came back dangerously low, so I was kept in overnight for emergency blood and platelet transfusions. And in fact, that overnight stay turned into almost 12 months of hospital isolation. I didn't make it home from that point for a very long time. And the next morning, I was told that I had suspected blood cancer, and this was confirmed a few days later through my bone marrow biopsy results, which showed that I had acute myeloid leukemia. And the moment that I heard the words, "You have blood cancer," I felt absolutely terrified. At diagnosis, I had 82% blasts, which meant I had active aggressive AML. And the reality of treatment involved 7 cycles of chemotherapy, over 100 blood and platelet transfusions to keep me alive, and countless IV, antibiotic, antifungal, and antiviral medications to fight off life threatening infections such as neutropenic sepsis, fungal pneumonia, and E. coli. I was in a critically vulnerable condition requiring 24-hour medical care and spent months in hospital isolation. It simply wasn't safe for me to go home. So treatment became my full-time job and survival became my only goal. And I spent almost 12 months in hospital isolation. And many people imagine cancer treatment is simply chemotherapy, but the reality for me was being unable to leave my hospital room, unable to even open a window, watching life continue without me, whilst I felt alone, powerless, and forgotten, fearing that I may never get home alive. And I missed out on all of the big and small things in life, just little things, just seeing my family and friends, and big events such as missing out on weddings, birthdays, and the arrival of a newborn baby in my family. And I missed just being out in nature, walking my dog and breathing in fresh air, missing out on normal, everyday, ordinary life that we all take for granted. And even though the treatment was brutal, the loneliness and isolation for me often felt harder than the treatment itself. And that's something that many people don't talk about, the impact that blood cancer can have on your mental health. Because in all honesty, I felt suicidal, particularly when I was told that my treatment had failed. My first cycle of chemotherapy had been unsuccessful. I still had 58% leukemia blasts in my bone marrow, and I'd not reached remission. So I was told that I had refractory AML with 2 genetic mutations, now putting me in the high-risk group, so treatment would have to be escalated to something even more dangerous and toxic. So I was now facing even more fear, even more uncertainty, and even more isolation. And my only chance of survival would be a stem cell transplant, but only if I could reach a deep remission and a matching donor could be found in time. Then things got worse because after each cycle of chemotherapy, I still wasn't getting to remission. And in fact, it took 7 months, 7 cycles of chemotherapy, and 7 months hospital isolation to finally reach remission so that I could qualify for a stem cell transplant. And fear took over. The sense of fear and helplessness was overwhelming, and I genuinely didn't believe that I'd survive. And hope felt really distant because, due to the aggressive nature of my disease, I was told that I had less than 40% chance of surviving the next 6 months. So I kept picturing 2 stick men. One was going to live and the other would die, and I thought that I would be the one to die. And it felt like the odds were stacked against me because I'd already survived a major brain hemorrhage 9 years before. So I didn't believe that I could survive this too. I didn't believe I could be that lucky twice. So I was absolutely terrified, and I couldn't face the thought of any more treatment or any more isolation. And I didn't think I had the strength to carry on. But I knew I had to keep going for my family. So I was given access to an oncology counsellor to discuss my feelings. And from there, I began focusing on what I could control. Simple things that brought moments of peace, like using daily affirmations and healing crystals, and just little simple things like sketching and colouring in to distract my mind from the negative thoughts. Anything that brought a spark of calm to the chaos inside me. And then I began to write poetry. I needed somewhere to place my fear and uncertainty. And at first, it was a way to vent my feelings and let my fear out onto the page. But over time, poetry became my anchor, a way to face my fear and then reach beyond it. So, poetry became my lifeline during the hardest chapter of my life. It gave me a positive focus and a sense of purpose beyond the treatment and isolation. And I set myself a few simple goals each day whilst I was going through treatment. Write 1 poem a day, share it on social media, and raise funds for Blood Cancer UK. And I'm really proud that at the darkest time of my life, whilst going through chemotherapy and fighting off life-threatening infections, I managed to raise over £1,000 for Blood Cancer UK by writing and sharing my poetry. So, whilst facing the toughest chapter of my life, I was determined to create something positive from the darkness. And I learned that hope is not the absence of fear, it's the quiet decision to reach for the light even when the shadows feel stronger. And sometimes it begins with the smallest choice to surrender and trust the path ahead. Then, eventually, after 7 months of hospital isolation, I finally received the news I'd been waiting for. I was MRD negative, which meant I was in remission, and a stem cell donor had been found. And I was finally allowed back home for a few weeks whilst arrangements were made for my stem cell transplant. I was so happy to be back home with my family and able to spend time in nature. But then came a devastating blow. Just as I was getting ready to return to hospital for my transplant, I received devastating news. I'd lost my donor and a new search would have to begin. And it felt like a ticking time bomb because it was approaching Christmas and I'd been told it was unlikely another donor would be found until the following year. So I was put on maintenance chemotherapy to keep the leukemia at bay whilst the search for a new donor began. I was absolutely terrified, but also happy that I get to spend Christmas at home with my family rather than being in hospital because I thought it would be the last Christmas that I'd ever get to spend with them. Then a miracle happened. We got the news we'd all been waiting for. A new stem cell donor had been found, and at last my family and I had the hope that we so desperately needed. A kind stranger somewhere in the world had agreed to donate their stem cells, and on the 6th of February 2025, I had my life-saving stem cell transplant. And this became my rebirth day. For my donor, it was simply one day out of their life. But for me, it was my chance, my second chance to live and to still be called mum, to still be part of my son's lives and to watch their lives unfold, and to enjoy each and every ordinary day with my family and the people I love. I may never know my donor's name, but I will carry their gift with me for the rest of my life. Because someone I've never met before said yes to donating their stem cells, I was given the chance to keep living. And I was finally discharged home just in time to celebrate my 57th birthday. So this was after almost 12 months in hospital isolation. But recovery is a marathon, not a sprint. A stem cell transplant isn't the end of treatment, it's the beginning of recovery. And even though I'm recovering really well, my journey continues. I still have to attend hospital regularly for blood tests and bone marrow biopsies to monitor me, make sure that there's no chance of relapse, and obviously to check for any complications such as graft versus host disease. And I have also had to have many other different types of therapies, such as intrathecal chemo, donor stem cell top-ups, and venesection therapy due to high ferritin levels from all of the blood and platelet transfusions. And my immune system is slowly rebuilding. I've had to begin all of my childhood vaccinations again. I'm still at high risk of infection, so I can't mix socially in public spaces, and I'm still on a mix of antibiotic and antiviral drugs to keep me safe and well. So recovery isn't measured in days or weeks, it's measured in months and years. But recovery is also about grief, and is the grief that no one talks about. It's about grieving the loss of the person you once were while learning to accept who you are today and embracing who you're becoming. And for me, that's about turning gratitude into purpose because I never expected to survive what I've been through. So I'm determined to use my second chance to make a difference. And since my stem cell transplant, I've challenged myself to turn gratitude into action by walking over 60 kilometres for Leukemia UK just 4 months after my stem cell transplant and raising over £1,000 for that charity. And then 5 months post transplant, I self published a bucket list journal to inspire others to live more fully after life's hardest moments. And all of that money also goes to blood cancer charities. And then 7 months post transplant, I climbed 7 hills in 7 days for World Bone Marrow Donor Day to raise funds and awareness for Anthony Nolan. And I raised over £1,000 for Anthony Nolan too. And then more recently, just last month, I self-published a book with all of the poems that I wrote whilst I was in hospital to bring hope and comfort to others and to raise funds and awareness of the stem cell register. My donor gave me a second chance to live, and so every one of these achievements exists because of their extraordinary act of kindness. But none of what I've achieved would have been possible without the kindness and support I've received along the way from organisations like the NHS, Anthony Nolan, and Blood Cancer UK, who have all been part of my journey. So today I'm proud to give something back in 3 different ways. First of all, as an ambassador for Blood Cancer UK and also a buddy support worker for Leukemia Care, supporting those recently diagnosed with blood cancer, and also by using my writing and my book, Poetry for Purpose, to raise awareness of blood cancer, encourage stem cell donation, and raise funds and awareness for Anthony Nolan and the Room with a View appeal at University Hospital Southampton. Because although I can't change what happened to me, I can use my experience to help someone else through their darkest chapter. And throughout my journey, organisations like Blood Cancer UK have supported me by providing trusted information, connection and support, and hope when I struggled to find my own. But most importantly, by reminding me I wasn't facing blood cancer alone. And by volunteering, it helps me create a sense of meaning and purpose from the worst experience of my life. Because although I didn't choose blood cancer, I didn't choose fear, I didn't choose isolation or a stem cell transplant, I can choose what I do with my second chance. And if sharing my story helps generate more funds for research or encourages one more person to join the stem cell register, and if my poems can bring comfort to just one patient facing fear and isolation, then everything I've been through has found a purpose. And if my story helps even one person feel less alone, it has all been worth it. Because I know how lucky I've been to have been given this second chance, which is why everything I've done since my stem cell transplant has been my way of saying thank you. Thank you to my donor, thank you to the NHS, and thank you to everyone who's been part of my journey. And thank you to you for listening. If you'd like to follow my journey further, you can do so at Facebook at Michelle Williams Words or at Poetry for Purpose UK. Thank you for listening.